Welcome, everybody, to Write Better Together. I'm John Myers. Hey, look, everybody, it's Emily Brooks.
Hello, John Myers.
Hey, Emily. What are we talking about today?
Well, we have quite the guests.
Oh, guests.
For the second time ever, we have two guests.
Yes.
We have Stephanie Jones.
Oh, I know her.
And Sarah Vessely.
I know her now. I didn't know her before.
And they're going to be talking about the mentor-mentee relationship, as well as some other things. We've had people come on and talk about mentorship before, but we've never had a mentor and a mentee on at the same time to hear both of their perspectives. So it was a really fascinating conversation. We're also going to have listener responses. Stephanie and Sarah are going to give you all a call to action.
Oh.
We're going to have a Hey John Myers segment where I teach John Myers something.
Oh, boy.
And then we're going to play a silly game.
Oh, and it's silly. Like sometimes I say, no, it's not silly and it's serious. This one is, but you could win money, but it's kind of silly.
Whoa. Oh, okay. But first, how did you get out of your bubble?
What makes you think I got out of our bubble? My bubble. What did I do?
I know, I'm having the same thing. I mean, I mostly stayed in because it was snowing.
No. So yes, I did get out of my bubble. Not only did I get out of my bubble, I got out of my bubble 7 times. I actually got more out of my bubble, more than 7 times, but I got out of my bubble 7 times for 15 minutes and observed nature.
Yes.
I discovered that, so I'm honoring creation and acknowledging creation, and I've discovered that I have to, my 1% thing, I have to do this forever. So this wasn't just this is, you're adding one thing, 1%.
But you added something that you have to now do every day for the rest of your life.
Yeah. And then next month it'll be another thing, right? Another 1%, another thing in a different category. And then you add that forever. I didn't realize it was forever. I thought it was for, I don't know what I thought. I thought it was for a week, I think, when we were talking about it. And then I thought it was for a month. But no, it's forever. So now I'm stuck in nature. Observing the grass and the squirrels. I did not see a junco, so who knows, by next week I'd be living in a tree, sleeping like in the shrubbery. I have like eating the things that you told me in like 5 or 6 episodes ago that I could eat, foraging for berries, spitting out the poison. I'm like, I guess I'm stuck outside now for the rest of my life.
I don't know if y'all can hear, but my doves think that's hilarious.
I think it's hilarious. How did you get out of your bubble?
Well, I also did some nature appreciation because I have not done much outside at all since being pregnant. So basically since September. I'm okay, like a little bit, but really not that much. My husband John and I went for a walk because it was a sunny day after the snow, so we could still see the snow, but like it was sunny. I did have to be extra careful, and this is being pregnant, if you fall, that's bad. So like for my whole life, it's like, I'm just clumsy, I'm gonna run into things, it's fine, whatever, I'll be fine. But this was like every time we crossed a bridge, it was covered in snow because there was so much air circulation, it wasn't melting. So I had to hold on to the rail, and then I had to hold on to John's hand. And so we're like slowly walking across this bridge. And I was like, I feel like so weak or something right now. And I'm not. It's just that I didn't want to fall.
He's so much taller than you. He could have just carried you, like carried you in his arms across the bridge.
That's true. But then if he had fallen, that would have not been good.
And 3 people would get hurt if he fell.
And we had Winnie with us.
Oh,
so
now I did also go on I haven't been going on my stupid walk lately, but I did go on the stupid walk 2 days ago. And so how come I don't get to count that as my 15 minutes of
Well, I actually was going to say that. You decided this.
Because you have to add something.
I think it should count. But maybe it's adding the extra layer of observing intentionally what you're encountering. Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm not honoring the creation when I'm on my stupid walk. I'm like,
Right.
oh, there's an apple core. Oh, there's a banana peel. and,
Right.
and so that's not honoring creation like I am when I'm sitting outside.
John and I also did a lot of nature appreciation because he got a bird feeder for Christmas.
Yes.
And it's just been swarming with woodpeckers and juncos and wrens, and it's been great. We just stare out the window all day.
As I were yearning, if only someone would feed me like we've fed those birds. um, I've observed so many squirrels and dogs walking by. I have not seen that many birds. I haven't seen any birds walking by. I've seen some fly by in my nature observation. Guess what? When we
Oh, is
do
it?
the hot list, I don't put this on the hot list, but we have a new segment
Yeah.
called Reasons My Kid is Crying to prepare Emily for when her child is crying. So or to prevent that circumstance, here is today's segment.
Oh no.
It wasn't raining outside. Speaking of going outside in nature. So be prepared. Your child may cry when it's not raining outside.
Fair
There you go.
enough. Fair enough. Well, we have some listener responses.
Oh.
We have a review from Cases.
Oh.
That says helpful, informative, inspiring.
Yes.
I picked this book up after meeting its authors at last year's WriterCon. They are some of the nicest people you will ever meet.
I am. I know that.
It's so sweet. It comes through in their writing styles. They bring the reader in close to share some of the personal struggles they have to overcome to achieve their goals, making it clear that if they can do it, you can too. Charming, relatable, and informative, this book is terrific inspiration for any writer, old or new, who needs a little nudge to get going, to keep going, or to get going again after a longer than intended break. The chapters are short, but I read only one a day so that I could put its principles into practice before moving on to the next. I would recommend this book for anyone who needs a little encouragement to just do the thing.
Wow, I remember her. She's friends with Mary. Thank you. That was great. And Emily's way nicer than I am, so if she says that we're nice people, that must your niceness like takes into account my less than nice.
You say that, but I
don't know.
You're underestimating your niceness, I'll say.
I think we're good.
But also, it was great to meet you too, Kay, and we're glad you liked the book.
Yeah, I think we're good cop, bad cop, and I like to be the bad cop.
That's so funny because you're really not. I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but
good cop, fine.
Yeah. We also had kind of a silly. We had a YouTube response.
Yes.
That I guess was mostly just an ego boost because it's from Aggressive Fist.
Oh, that's a person to give you an ego boost.
And it says, she looks like she could be the older sister to Millie Bobby Brown, and he looks like he could be the younger brother to J.K. Simmons.
Yeah. Well, you do. I would take that as a compliment. And I'll take, that's way better than being called I look like Danny DeVito or something. So I'll take J.K. Simmons any day. And I personally...
I love J.K. Simmons.
Yeah, he's great. Sure. I'll sell insurance with J.K. Simmons. Thank you.
Sure.
People tell me I look like Kelsey Grammer. Do you see that? Like, I don't see that.
I don't know who that is.
Frasier.
Oh, no.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think that. People tell me I look like Brother Blotz. Now that I can kind of...
Identical. If you're watching on the video, or if you're not watching on the video,
Identical.
John Myers just held up a very accurate...
I don't... Yeah. Brother Blotz doesn't have
your
glasses.
nose isn't that big.
I think it is. But here, now I took my glasses off. Now Ashley Hargrove won't recognize me.
You have to raise your eyebrows. There you go.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, aggressive YouTube viewer.
So before we get to our interview, I just want to introduce our new friends with you all. So we're going to be talking to Stephanie Jones, who is an award-winning author, speaker, podcaster, and coach, whose mission is to empower others to change their life through giving. And so she also is, in this episode, we're going to be talking about her coaching experience with Sarah. Is there anything else we want to add about Stephanie?
I'll add that she has 9 different. I hold up one during the interview, but 9 different books, gratitude-based books, and that she has a TEDx talk on gratitude, and it's wonderful. So we'll put a link to that in the show notes as well, and a link to her page. And she's just an amazing, super positive person, and so is Sarah.
And then if you are a Patreon supporter, you'll also get to hear her talk about having an indie press, which is really fascinating as well.
Mm-hmm.
And Sarah is a recent high school graduate, daughter, sister, friend, and author. Jesus, It's You started as a New Year's resolution joke, but quickly became a big goal she dared to pursue. She asked one simple question: how can I take what I've learned and teach someone else? With perseverance and willingness to learn, she accomplished the goal of becoming a published author. Vessely enjoys attending church with her family, traveling, and watching sports. And I just love, I mentioned later, she's our youngest guest so far, and I just absolutely love her work ethic at her age, and she has big dreams and goals, and she's pursuing them, and is growing in her confidence, as you'll hear. And I love that for someone her age.
She's methodically tackling them one at a time. It's wonderful.
Yeah. And having a coach, I mean, I wish I had a coach at that age. Like, it's just fantastic. So good for her. I hope you all enjoy this conversation with Stephanie and Sarah.
And we're back. Hey, I'm still John Myers. Hey, look, everybody, it's still Emily Brooks. Who are these other people?
Hey, it's Stephanie Jones and Sarah Vessely.
Oh my goodness, where'd they come from? I happen to have one of her books right here. Look at that. What are the odds that I would have one of her books on my bookshelf? Where'd they come from? Where are you, Stephanie Jones?
We're in Northwest Indiana.
Oh my goodness.
Chicago.
Oh. And Sarah's obviously in the same room. So tell the people what the relationship between you two is, and then we'll ask you some questions.
Sure. So I'm Sarah's mentor, I guess. I'll let her describe it, but yeah. Any other additions to that?
Maybe publisher.
Yeah,
my publisher for my book.
Yeah, I published her book at Giving Gal Press, and
amazing.
Yeah.
How did that relationship start? Like, did you all already know each other, or did you have to seek each other out?
So it's kind of like a funny story. I started writing this book as like a complete joke. I was like, this is not going to go anywhere. And then I told my dad, and he's like, actually, this is kind of funny. This girl I know from work has published, I think it was like 7 books at the time. And he's like, so I can talk to her. You guys can have like this conversation and see like what you're supposed to do. And I was like, okay. So we met one day, and it just started from there, I guess.
And tell people the name of your book.
My name of the book is Jesus, It's You.
Cool. And so your dad works with Stephanie.
Yeah, so we were on a board together, like a nonprofit board together. And her dad came to the board meeting one day and was like, my daughter said she's writing a book. We haven't read it. We know nothing about it. Would you, like, we don't know how to advise her. Would you meet with her? And I said, sure, why not? So
when did you know? What was the pivot point? When did you know the actual moment? And I want to know, like, the moment, like where you were washing dishes, whatever the thing, the scenario you were in, the location you were in, when you're like, yeah, I'm going to publish Sarah's book.
Probably after the first time I read her like real rough draft. She had given me, I don't think she had it all written, but had a real rough draft. And she truly has a gift for being vulnerable, authentic. She was a teenager when she started writing it, like 16, and I'm in my like 40s, and I was learning something from it. Like, oh wow, like, she just, it's a faith-based book. I read the Bible, I go to church, And I was learning. I was like, wow, there's something here. And so we started talking about the publishing process, because you can traditionally publish or there's different ways, and walked all that through it. And yeah, I don't know where I was exactly, but probably somewhere in my house reading her manuscript that she gave me. I was like, yeah, I'll publish this book. I'd be proud to.
Was it on paper or was it on a screen?
Paper.
Ah.
I'm old school, John Myers. I can't.
So after you had read the draft and decided to do this together, how much were you involved in the revision process and the completing the book?
Yeah.
And both of you can kind of jump into that
I would
as well.
say first is I'm not an editor. I'm dyslexic. Grammar, spelling, that is not my area of expertise. But the more you write, the more you can see the gaps, the more you could I could make notes and comment, or if this doesn't make sense. But then you can talk about kind of what the process was after that.
Yeah, so I gave Stephanie my first really bad rough draft and then she made little edits, and then I keep giving it back to her, and then she got me in contact with an editor, and then we kind of went from there, and it was very smooth. I thought I liked how it was just they just made the small edits, and what I really like about editing is they give you multiple ways you can change something, not just scratch this is what you're gonna say. It's you could keep this, you could scratch this, you could split this up and say this. There's multiple ways to go about what they're editing.
Who all before that point, besides Stephanie, who all saw it?
Nobody.
Oh.
Just Stephanie. Because I told my parents, I'm like, listen, I don't want you guys to read this.
Listen, parents.
It's I don't want anybody to read this until it's the copy. And they're like, okay. And I was like, okay.
Emily, you two don't know, but Emily had supportive parents. I did not. How were you when on your first? Were they readers, or did you hold it back a little bit?
Me or Sarah?
With your parents, Emily.
Oh, are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Oh, so my parents are often my first readers, if not my sister. But it's because, well, it is scary, and I sometimes will hold it back a while, but they're really good at giving feedback. And sometimes in a brutal way. And so I have to, not in a mean way, but just honest, which is what I need. And so, yeah, they're often the first ones. They're also usually the first ones to actually finish reading a draft. So even if I give it to other people, they will read it the fastest. They're my biggest fans. So.
And what about you, Stephanie?
Yeah, I feel like for me, it depends on the book. I have 9 now, and so it really depends on maybe who's around or who's in my life or who kind of likes the subject or topic, or I don't know. I feel like everyone's kind of been different of who sees it, whether it's, I know my mom and sister have seen a couple first. My husband probably have seen bits and pieces, as I'm writing, or I'll pass something off to him. For my children's book, I have a book coach. And so she's usually the first one to see that first draft of the children's books, and then go from there.
Yeah, different people are going to offer something different depending on the genre. And I do get to a point where I'm like, okay, you all do not need to read anymore. I'm going to revise it. So then the next time you read it, it's going to be the final version. You don't need to read it 5 times or whatever. I do think my dad may have read, actually both of them may have read it, 2 drafts of it. So I was grateful for that. But yeah, sometimes I'm like, okay, you get to read it when it's done. But for some reason they end up reading the draftiest of drafts. Whereas I prefer other people to read a more polished draft.
Yeah, because I don't want to waste people's time.
Yeah, it's like, okay, I've got these people working on it, so I'm going to get feedback from them. And then, and I've got my writing group, so I'll get feedback from them. But, when it's like my sisters or some of my friends, I'm like, just wait. well, you'll get to read it eventually.
The while you're the process while you're creating, what do you use? What software do you use? Do you use Word? Do you use something else besides Word? And did that change when Stephanie got involved, Sarah?
So I usually use Word or like Docs, and then I also like to write like on paper, like at first, like write like all my ideas down on paper, and then kind of see like if it could be a like chapter or like the whole theme of the book, and then I'll go like on Word and write it. And then Stephanie also uses Word, so it's easy to just like go like back and forth, like make small edits between those.
She likes to type a lot on her phone also. I feel like a lot of times she'll go, "Can I read this to you?" And it seems like you start on your phone.
I use my notes app a lot, which is where I wrote the very first chapter of my first book all on my notes app, and then I just copied and pasted it onto Word, and I was like, "Here's my first chapter."
Wow.
That's cool. And when as the publisher, Stephanie, what do you use to format it and all that?
So I pay somebody to do all of that. I kind of know, as you can hear, I know what my area of expertise is. I know what it's not. And not that I couldn't learn it, or I know there's a lot of different software out there. Like I've had friends say, "Oh, it's so easy. Just use this software." But I dabble in a lot of other areas, and it's like if you do this, that's an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, then you can't do this. And so I just, under my publishing company, it's like I know somebody that can do it better, faster, farm it all out, get it back in.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Knowing what it is that you really want to put your time and effort into, and then what are you willing to just pay somebody to do.
Yeah, and I've had some people say, "Well, I can't afford that." And sometimes that's a good answer. Okay, maybe you can't, but then it's like, what is your time worth? If you're trying to learn something new and then you're making a lot of mistakes, or you have to republish your book multiple times, because you catch a bunch of errors because you didn't know what you were doing. So I a lot of times, I put my coaching hat on, is asking people, okay, well, what's your time worth? If you can give it to somebody and you get 10 hours back or whatever, you have to think about things in like a business owner. As authors, we are business owners, and think about that. So,
and Sarah, I'm going to ask you the same question that I asked Stephanie. What was your moment where you're like, "Oh, she's actually going to do something with my book that I've been hiding away and not even showing my parents"? Where were you when you realized that, and what was your emotion?
I think this is really weird. I was in health class my sophomore year, and we had like free time, and I got a like draft back from Stephanie I think like Friday, I don't know what day it was, and I like opened it up, and I was like, oh my gosh, I could actually like be an author. And I was so during school, so because I was like, she's actually gonna do this, because I was like, if she hates this book, I don't know what I'm gonna do. If she's like, you're too young, I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do after this. So she was like my only hope, I guess you could say, of getting a book out there.
Was that the same? So I'm curious, because you said that you kind of started writing it as a joke. Was it the same moment or a different moment when you were like, no, I actually have something here and that I need to share, and that this isn't just for me anymore?
Yeah, I think I started writing it, and then I finally got like a good start to it. So I'd probably say like because I made a joke on New Year's to my dad, like, this year I'm gonna write a book. So I think that night that I said that, I was like, I can actually write a book, because I wrote the whole entire first chapter that night that I said that. So I was like, if I can just write like maybe like 10 more chapters, which is a lot. But I was like, if I can do this 10 more times, I'll have a like real book out. So that was cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that so much.
Once you realized it was going to be published, how did that change your daily routine, or what is your daily routine, your weekly routine as a writer? And then how did it change once you realized, hey, this is people are gonna hold this in their hand?
Yeah, so I was in high school still when I was writing it, and when it came out, I was in high school. So obviously you had like school, and then I worked for Stephanie at that time. I was her social media manager. So I was just like
cool.
writing like whenever I could, pretty much, because I had homework and I had school and I had like, the like football games, like all like the fun stuff you do with your friends in high school. And then I think I just graduated in June from high school, and then I'm taking a gap year right now, trying to like figure out like what I want to do next. So this, I'm pretty much just like from like I was like 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. just like writing and writing and writing, and then I'll like send Stephanie whatever I have, and then like we'll go along with that. But I think like when my book was published, it was changed because I'm an author now. Like I'm like an actual author, not just like a aspiring author. Like I actually have like one book out and like doing more stuff with it. So I think it's cool. It also, I feel like now that I have one book out, I'm more determined to get more out because I'm like it can happen. So
that's the exact opposite of the episode we just did about the 300 people that said I'm a writer, but right.
Yeah.
Sarah's a perfect example. I got all goosebumpy when you were talking about that, Sarah. That's that's what those 300 people need to watch this episode and hear Sarah, young Sarah, say that.
Yeah, for sure. So so you have one book out, and when did that come out? And then I'm assuming, so you're working on another one now?
Yeah. So this book came out, well, it was kind of a funny story. It came out on Amazon last year in January, but I never like officially like launched it. And Stephanie's like, launch it. And I was like, okay, like
tell her why you didn't launch it though.
Because I was scared what people were gonna think. Because I'm like, I'm in high school. All my friends follow me. They're like, who's this nerd who's writing a book in high school? And then I graduated and I was like, okay, I don't care anymore. And then I just like launched it and people started like getting it in October. So only a couple months ago. And then I'm working on a new devotional is what I'm working on.
So we're actually part of the launch.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not October anymore, but
yeah, I mean, we'll definitely be sharing that in the show notes so people can see it. And I'm really curious. Well, no, now I have so many thoughts because that fear that you just talked about, I feel like so many of us have that. We're actually going to have a webinar on perfectionism, but it's like that feeling of like, but it's not perfect, or what are people going to think about it? And that can stop us so often. Or even like, oh, we were just talking about parents, like, oh, what are my parents going to think? What's my best friend going to think? What's my husband going to think? Like, I think those kind of thoughts really can be paralyzing. And so I love that you're just like, you know what? I don't care anymore. We're doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And, it sounds like people need that book. And so I'm glad that you didn't hold back.
I think it was a good example too, especially for me as a mentor, is to know when to push people and not to push people. Like I knew when she released that book, I was the one that helped her do it. I was the one that uploaded it on Amazon. But also is to give people grace. I knew she was in high school. I knew she had other stuff going. So I just was like, now is not the time to be like, the book's out here. You need to launch. But then, little time goes by and it's like, okay, now you got to put on that coaching mentor hat and go, what's going on here? Like you did all this work. It costs time. It costs money. And get it out there. So it was a good lesson for me also.
Do you, Stephanie, just describe the sense of responsibility you feel with Sarah. Like she's not your child, she's your client. And so how responsible do you feel for her career and for her as a human?
Yeah. Maybe more and more each day I feel a little more responsible. Well, do you want to talk a little bit about like speaking and what we're working on?
Yeah.
Okay. So Sarah does have a gift besides the gift of writing. Besides an author, I'm a keynote speaker, and a lot of times those two will go hand in hand. Not all the time, but sometimes. And I had seen that in Sarah. So we're working on her like signature talk and her keynote, and she has her first speaking engagement coming up, and she is taking a gap year. And so I do feel responsibility because I'm always like, are your parents okay with this? Or, like it's just this time, but yeah, I feel responsibility, but she's also worth investing in. She does, I don't want to say she does everything I tell her to do, but she's very coachable. And I think that's why I guess I continue to invest time, because she's coachable, and she steps up and does the hard and scary things. And she'll have her
Like
first
podcast.
Yeah, like the podcast today. But she'll have her first keynote event that's going to be at location. There'll probably be 75 to 100 people there, and she's going to have to get up there on her own. So I will make sure she's prepared to get up there, because not that I think she'll fail, but it's like, if she fails, it kind of is on me a little bit too. So
Sarah, you need to. So Emily already knows what I'm going to say. So Emily wrote this blog post.
Oh
I
yeah.
don't know, a few months ago. Describe like, hey, I'm a public speaker now, and you need to read that, Sarah and Emily. You need to share that with her, and
yeah.
like again, another goosebump moment. Like, so say a little bit about it, then I have something else to say.
Well, so I particularly wrote about how like I feel like growing up, people saw me as the shy girl who like didn't talk very much. And so I feel like people are surprised when I say that I'm doing speaking. But it's just, it's a different thing. Um, and it is a skill that you can develop, and you get over the anxieties, or even if you don't get over all of the anxieties, you kind of go, you know what, it's okay, because I can do it anyway. So yeah, that's kind of what I was writing about there.
So Stephanie kind of hinted at it, but today's episode, Stephanie's scheduled to be on in March. That episode will probably come on in April, early April, and this episode was a last minute thing because we had a guest cancel. Who we'll talk more about that on the bookends, but we're praying for him, and but Stephanie immediately said yes. And then she immediately roped in Sarah, who I want to hear what Sarah thought when she got the text from Stephanie. But here, no matter what you initially thought, here you are here. And when you woke up this morning, you didn't know you were going to be here. And neither did Stephanie, and neither did we. And so I love that the Holy Spirit orchestrates these things. And like this happens time and time again. And it's just amazing. And it was the right thing to happen at the right time in Sarah's career and in Stephanie's as a publisher. It was just the right timing. Sarah, tell us how it felt when you got the text.
Well, I was like, what? Like at first I was like, what? Because we scheduled to meet today like 2 weeks ago, and then she's like, also, I'm gonna be on this podcast at 1 if you want to be on, because she said that she like told you about me, I guess, kind of. And I was like, okay. So I was like, why not? So then I said this like prayer about it, and I got this like wave of peace, and I was like, I'm gonna do it. I was like, what's the worst that could happen? I was like,
yeah, because she hesitated. She's like, I need to think about it, and then I'll let you know. And I said, you don't have much time to think about it. Like, let them know. And then that's what she said is, I
pray fast, and then
pray fast,
pray faster, and then but then did you hear? Like, you obviously heard what Sarah just said. What's the worst that could happen? What is that? What is that, Emily? What's the worst that could happen? Where does that come from?
We talked with Lucy V. Hay about asking ourselves that question, because it can be real. Like, you don't want to use that as a way to think of worst case scenarios, but at the same time, you're also like, okay, but if that actually happened, how bad would it really be? But I also think, like, this isn't true every time. But what I've learned is that I usually will regret not saying yes to something more than I'll regret saying yes to something. That if a door is open, then walk through it and see what happens. And I think you're right to listen to the Holy Spirit. And I know that the Holy Spirit has also closed doors on me that were, the door kind of cracked open. I peeked in and it was like, nope. So you get that insight too, but it doesn't hurt to take the first step.
My pastor prays sometimes, this door's open, I'm going through it, you need to close it, God. If you don't want me to go through it, you need to close it, because I'm doing it on my own and I don't have an answer. And the other thing he thinks is that when you don't get an answer, that's God trusting you to make the decision. Like, you don't always, I didn't get an answer doesn't mean wait till later always, and it doesn't mean no always. It's like, I trust you. You got 2 jobs, they're both great, and you just got offered 2 jobs. Pick one of them. I'm trusting you to make that choice. So anyway,
that's good. That's important too.
Yep.
I feel like I'm. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, what are you feeling right now, Emily?
What am I feeling right now?
Yeah.
I don't know what you mean.
You started to say I'm feeling.
Oh, I was gonna say. Sorry, I was so confused there. I was gonna say that I feel like I'm learning a lot more about what this mentorship looks like, because in my mind I was thinking more of like a writing coach, like a writing instructor, kind of like like we would have it like at an MFA or something. But it sounds like you're doing so much more than that as well, like with career, even with encouragement. And so I would love to hear more about that, like what that looks like on the day to day. Like, how is your communication? What kind of things are you all focusing on in your conversations?
Yeah, so I'll start and then I'll let Sarah kind of go how we operate. Is, man, probably a couple of months ago is we sat down and I just asked her, like, what are your goals? What are your goals? What do you want to work on? She had a bunch of things and I said, okay, let's prioritize. Like, we can't do everything, so let's prioritize those. And then that's where you start spending your time. And then, like, just for instance, one of the things was speaking. Well, you have to have a signature talk. So what does that look like? And then setting deadlines of, okay, well, to do that, here's what you have to do. And, I made her say, you've got to give your talk to yourself at least 7 times before I'm going to listen to you. Emily kind of like getting that book in a really good spot. And, but then from there, do you want to talk about how we kind of work together?
Yeah. So we text, I'd say, like, every day probably. I have so many questions. Like, I ask her so many questions because she has so much knowledge about, like, what I'm going through. And so if I pretty much ask her, like, everything that I'm doing, which it's crazy. Anyways, so she just helps me, like she said, like, what goals I should focus on first and what I can, like, get to, like, fastest almost too, to get, like, those off my goal list and be, like, reality. So I feel like we're kind of like 2 peas in a pod. But it's just like, I probably come over to her house a lot and just, like, work and give her, like, talks and, like, give her manuscripts or, like, stuff.
So usually we'll meet every couple of weeks in person. And we'll just set a time. But Sarah's really good. Like, we had lunch last week too. Like, we went out to lunch instead of, but she brought everything with her, and she's good about bringing all her questions, so she'll pull out her questions and like, okay, what about this? What about this? What about this? And so we'll kind of knock all that out. And then, like, yeah, last week she brought me a draft of her manuscript for her devotional, but I'm also very honest. Like, I haven't gotten to it yet. So when she showed up today, it's like, I haven't even read that. But today's purpose was we were going to work on her talk. And so we knew that this is a time she's going to give me her talk. I actually was going to have her on my podcast, and we were just going to record an audio.
We scooped you.
Yes, scoop. Got the scoop on me. Yeah, and it's just very, like I said, we've got goals. She knows how to focus her time. Sometimes, like last week, I said, okay, Sarah, this is your job now. Like, tell me what your day looks like from time you get up. And she went over her schedule and everything. And so it's those things too that I'm just kind of paying attention, or things that, I'm in my late 40s. I would have given anything to have someone like me when I was much younger to guide. So I think of those things too, of like, what would I have liked to known? Or even at an author, what did I spend money on that was a big waste of money or a big waste of time? How can I save her money and time?
Man, it sounds like everybody needs a mentor. I'm like, I want a mentor. Goodness, somebody to walk through my schedule with me and encourage me and help me figure out my life. That sounds great.
Well, I do that with my coaching, Emily. So
it's so great. I love it. I mean, they don't give that to you in college either. You're more, you
just read my mind, Emily. I was going to say, do you not consider some of your college folks, and don't name any colleges, but do you not consider any of them to be your mentor?
There are people like I would send like writing to. I mean, I haven't done that in a long time, but like I trust them to evaluate my writing and help me become a better writer. But I don't have like someone who's walking through my career with me.
True. But at the time they were your mentor, or no?
I guess a little bit. It's just a different stage of life. And so, you're right. I would have meetings with my professors of like, what does the next year look like as far as what classes do you need to take? Do you need to be in an internship? So yeah, I guess there was that to an extent for sure.
Cause like Travis, my first screenwriting mentor, I still call him my mentor, but I haven't talked to him in a couple of years, right? But Lucy was also my first screenwriting mentor, not from outside of the university world, right? And so longer than Travis was, maybe. And but I'll ask her a question tomorrow if I need to, right? And Dr. Dinan I would still consider her to be my fiction mentor, or you. I also consider you to be my fiction mentor. I think that's, but it's not an ongoing coach client relationship like Stephanie and Sarah have.
Yeah, but that's neat that there's a variety of people, because kind of like we were just talking about when you're sharing your work for the first time with people, it's they're going to be different people who can help in certain ways.
So what are your boundaries?
You need that reader who's just an encourager, right?
Oh, that's true. Yeah. I'm sorry I interrupted.
You're good.
What are your boundaries, Stephanie, that you give Sarah?
Yeah. I don't think I've probably verbalized. I think she just kind of knows. And like the time, like, so today it's like you have 1 to 3, or chunks of time when we're getting together. I don't have all, I had clients in the morning. I have clients this evening. So you have 1 to 3 today. So it's usually time boundaries if she's coming over here. And then I think she knows is I kind of get to her when I get to, like she knows I'll always get back to her. I'm just slow sometimes, but I think she knows, except the other day she did text me and I was in the middle of something and I sent her one sentence and then I totally forgot about it. And then we just talked about now. I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like I usually follow up. It's just not, so I would say those, I don't know if those are boundaries, John Myers, but
Sarah, do you perceive any other boundaries that didn't just come out of Stephanie's mouth? Because she said those had never been verbalized before.
I don't think so. I think it's kind of just, it's like common sense almost. Like, don't take up too much of her time. If she has something going on at 4, leave at before 4. Let her have her life and not all of her life. So I think it's just like respect too, almost. Like she has so many other people that she helps that aren't me. So it's like you just know not to take up too much of her time if she asks you not to.
And I would say too, I just want to say this for anybody who's watching, is when she was in high school, she's 18 now, going on 19, but when she was in high school, like everything ran through her parents, like there were more boundaries because I was just always cognizant of that. And now I would say it's a little bit looser just because she's older, but when she was in high school, we had different boundaries. And I don't even know if you were coming over here when you were in high school, maybe. But a lot of times we were meeting at coffee shops, and her dad would be sitting at a table over until especially they got really comfortable with me. Even though we had served on a board together, it's not like we knew each other well. And so I would just put that out there. If anybody has a mentor mentee relationship, it's different now than what it was in the beginning.
I have a last question, and then we didn't tell you we're going to ask for a call to action from you. It can be a team call to action, or you can give us 2 different call to actions where you tell our viewers or listeners to go do something this week, and then they report back to us. And then I don't know if Emily has a last question or not, but my last question is, when Stephanie, when you were telling Sarah that she needs a signature talk, what were like 3 key points of make sure your signature, because she's setting her brand up for the rest of her life. I mean, for essentially for the rest of her life. Obviously, you can shift and make it bigger as she grows as a speaker. But what are the 3 key things that she needs to consider when she's building this first talk?
Oh yeah, that's good to okay, let me think about this. Well, I know one thing is I said we're going to start at 60 minutes. Like your signature talk is you're going to work towards 60 minutes because it's, you'll get asked to speak and somebody will say, can you speak for 30 minutes or 60 minutes or 20 minutes? It is much easier to start with a big talk and then kind of chop it down as opposed to 20 minutes and then somebody asks you to do 60 and you're like, oh my gosh, now you almost have to start over when you do it that way. Or at least from my experience. I think one of the other things too is I told her to go watch TEDx talks. I've given TEDx talks, but if you watch them, they're pretty formulaic. And it's just a good way to see what good talks look like. Also is, a TEDx talk is way harder because you usually don't have any props with you. And then I think maybe a third thing that I told you was on storytelling is have a good intro story or statistic or key. I know hers is story. I'm a big storyteller is, a lot of people will get up there and they will thank the audience and they will, kind of do all these things. And then you've almost lost your audience. So it's like, have something that's going to capture them in the beginning. And then go from there. So those are 3 I know I gave you. I don't know if those were the top 3, but I would start there. Did I miss anything or something?
I don't think so. Maybe just like know your audience too.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Who are you talking to? Your audience, their age, if there's a theme or anything like that. So that's a good one.
That's really good. It sounds like you all have created almost a natural flow to this process. Like when you're talking about boundaries, it sounded like you didn't really have to verbalize things. So I'm curious if you would have any final like recommendations for a mentor or mentee, that maybe something that you had to learn along the way.
I'll start and then I'll let Sarah say. I think it was good that we originally had one project, like very small, one project, her first book. I knew exactly what she needed and could help her navigate. And I didn't even know if I was going to publish it in the beginning. You know, it really was helping her answer any questions she had about publishing, whether she was going to go traditional or, you know, any of that. So I think is understanding what the purpose is of the mentor mentee relationship and focusing on one thing. Because I can be very I'll be very honest with you. If Sarah would have wasted my time, or I'm just like, yeah, this isn't going anywhere, she isn't progressing, it probably wouldn't have progressed, or I know it wouldn't have progressed to what it has progressed today. So I think that anytime you're in that type of relationship where it's mentor mentee, I even think about coaching clients, you know, is I'll coach people until it's like, you're not doing the work, you're making up excuses, this isn't moving forward. And you have to be okay with having those conversations. You can show people grace and you can give them opportunity. Life happens. And then I think it just evolved from there.
Other comments? I think something that I learned a lot is like just be ready to work. I feel like that's like the most like basic thing, but it's like you, as like I did, I had no idea what I was getting into, what I was doing, and I was just like, I'm just gonna work and then see what comes out of it. And obviously a book came out of it, so that's a positive thing. So I would just say work, like work until you feel like you can't work anymore.
I like that you said that it was one thing. Like there's so many people. Well, like we're an example, right? When we started, we didn't have a website. Like Sarah already was your social media person, right? But we didn't have a website. We didn't have any social media. We didn't have a podcast. We didn't have a book, and we had 5 things that all started at once. So yeah, that for a mentor mentee relationship, that was. I don't want to say handy, but that was optimal.
Well, and it's like get some wins, you know, like that was the other thing too. Like Sarah said work, but I was giving her so as a mentor is you have to give your mentee very specific assignments. Do 1, 2, 3. And I would tell her, text me when you get those 3 things done, and then we'll schedule a time to meet. So be very clear of what you're asking them to do and the next steps. I think that helped too to kind of keep things moving forward, because I was giving her almost, you know, homework assignments. She was doing it. We would have a conversation. She would ask a question, next homework assignment, and but that's how she progressed to having a book and to where we are today. So
there's a YouTube short right there. That last minute. All right. You've had a whole 5 minutes to think about your call to action.
Okay. Well, I have one. I don't know if you do. Okay. Think about why I'm talking is if you don't have a mentor, think about like who would be your perfect mentor, maybe that you've come across or somebody that you've talked to, and reach out to them. And maybe it's just for a coffee, but I will say is when you do that, and if they say yes, is don't waste their time. You know, Sarah came prepared. She had questions. And it was not a waste of my time, which is why I kept working with her and said, yes, like I'll continue to work. So I think if you don't have a mentor, think about somebody, reach out to them. If they say yes, be prepared for, you know, the time that you get with them.
I feel like what I would say, this is kind of like basic. I don't even know if it's a call to action or not, but I would say if you have like any like dream or like thing that you want to do, just like start working on it. So just like start writing or start taking like, I don't know what people like want to do, but just like start working towards your goal and just start like one step each day, just one step, and then keep going forward, and then finally you're gonna reach your goal.
That's a proud moment.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, so I'm like, very good.
Well, that's a call to action, all right.
I love it. So listeners, you can respond to these, like tell us about what you plan to do or what you have done. You can respond to this video on YouTube. You can respond on social media when we share this video, or you can go to writebettertogether.com/podcast and respond to the show notes for this episode there. But we would love to hear from you all.
That was amazing. Thank you, both of you. Viewers, Stephanie will be back in March. I think it will air in April, if not for more than after that. Or who knows? Someone else might cancel next week. Who knows?
Well, thank you for having us. We had fun.
Yeah, this was great. And guess what?
It's wonderful.
When she comes back, I bet you she talks about gratitude. She just talked for a half hour and didn't mention the word gratitude.
Wow.
The gratitude, the giving gal didn't even mention gratitude for an entire half hour.
Hey, this wasn't about me. This was about,
Exactly.
mentorship.
That was wonderful.
And Sarah, I think you win the award of our youngest guest so far. So congratulations. And also, it's so important for people your age and younger to see you doing what you're doing. So thank you so much.
Our audience does not know our age, so she might not be the youngest.
We're all the same. She just said her age.
Oh, that's true.
But thank you all so much. You'll have a wonderful rest of your day writing and practicing speaking and whatever else you're going to be working on.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're back. There's so much there. That was so amazing. Right?
I'm jealous.
Oh. I didn't expect that response to their amazing relationship. I like that that Stephanie points out this relationship is only valuable when the client comes prepared.
Yeah.
And does the work.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same as teachers, right? Like we can control what input we give into our students, but we can't control what they actually take from that. The student is really the one responsible for their own learning. And I think Sarah's a great example of that. I bet she's a great student. And it sounds like if you want to go into this kind of coaching, if you want to seek out a coach, come with the questions, come with your goals in mind. But it also sounds like, when Stephanie said Sarah's very coachable, it sounds like Sarah's not like, okay, I know what I need to do and, here's what we're doing. She seems very willing to listen to Stephanie's ideas and trust the expert.
Yeah, she's I was going to say a blank slate, but she's more than a blank slate, but she's a blank slate when it comes to tell me what I can do. But Stephanie gives her 3 options, right? And then she'll say these 3 options are what you should consider. And then she leaves it to the client. She leaves it to Sarah to do that. The other thing I wanted to point out was, so Jamin just had on his Substack, here's a link to his Substack. I get nothing out of this. And how much he hates the word networking. Oh, how familiar does that sound? I wrote a whole article about that. Here's a link to that article. And because it's just getting to know, it's not, people think networking is this thing to do to can these other people help me? But no, it's getting to know people and demonstrating that you're reliable. And so 5 or 10 years later, something might happen or might not happen, but they know who's reliable and who's not. And that's kind of what happened. And so we talked in a previous episode about how Aaron Covington got jobs. Is someone heard, hey, I saw you did this thing and someone told me you did this other thing and that you were super reliable. And he had never actually applied for jobs other than one. And he just got them because people knew he was good at what he did and was reliable and delivered on time and delivered quality product. Well, that's kind of the version of what happened with them. Is Sarah's dad was on a board with Stephanie. So Sarah's dad knew Stephanie was like not some fly-by-night publishing company or whatever, knew that she was impressive and knew her stuff. And then he had faith in her and his daughter. And then the dad's reputation kind of rubbed off on the daughter when the dad approaches Stephanie. So that's that's a smaller version or a microcosm version, but that's how it happens. And that's going to happen in Sarah's life and in Stephanie's life and in our lives and your listeners' lives and viewers' lives 5 years from now and 10 years from now. It'll just grow from there.
Absolutely.
And I had one more thing to say is on her call to action. I love that call to action. I loved both of their call to actions. What I don't love is when someone says, "Here, can I buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain?" Because that's not mentoring. That's taking an hour or two of your time going to William Martell. "Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and pick your brain for 2 hours about my script?" That's not mentoring. That's telling William Martell, who's done this for 40 years, that his time is only worth $5 an hour. No, he has a lifetime of experience. And so that's not even networking. That's not the bad word networking. That's not what happened in Stephanie and Sarah's life. And that don't do that, people. Like, people's time is valuable. And it's like, I don't know, calling your lawyer who charges you $200 an hour. "Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee?" And then tell them all your legal woes during that half hour. You can't do that.
Yeah, and I think this happens in a lot of professions, but particularly in the arts, where it's like we think if somebody has a skill that they're willing to just do that for free for us. I think, when you're seeking out that, definitely consider those boundaries and consider, how well do you know this person? You may need to slowly kind of start a relationship before you ask anything like that. Now there are people obviously who are charging to be coaches, and so you might be like, "Can we have an initial talk?"
Yeah.
To kind of fill it out, But it's probably going to just depend on each situation.
And I think, and you can disagree if you disagree. I think the advice giver is the one who's in charge of that transaction. That's why I don't like networking. And Jamin said the same thing, because it seems so transactional, and that's not what it is. It's building this lifelong relationship. It's not transactional. Yeah. But if someone wants to, I really like. If Brandon Sanderson goes, "Oh, I really like Emily's writing and I want to spend an hour at a coffee shop with her," then that he's allowed to do that. Like, you're allowed to give your time away for free if you want to, but it shouldn't be expected.
I think that is a good thing to say.
Yep.
Hey, John Myers.
Yes, I get to learn something.
I hope so. This is actually something that you may already know, but it's important.
I'll play dumb.
Because it comes. How many hours of sleep do adults need?
What's sleep?
How many hours of sleep do adults need per night?
I don't know. Apparently you need more, because first of all, I need to commend you because you have not yawned at all in this episode. But in last week's episode, it was like you were yawning through the whole thing, and then you hold up a yawning book at the end of it. And so I'm gonna say,
we started later last time. That may be why.
I'm gonna say 5 because I don't even sleep 5, but I tell people I sleep 5. I've slept 5 since I was in high school. I sleep from 12 to 5, and midnight to 5 when I was in high school. That's about what I sleep now, if I don't tell the truth. So I say 5. I did read an article that said if you don't get, I don't remember the amount, but the proper amount, that it increases your chance of dementia.
So this is where it's interesting. So a lot of places will say 7 to 9 hours.
That's
and
true.
That usually women need more than men. But the reason why I bring this up, because this is important, because John Myers has a whole chapter on sleep in our book, right? Anyway, right? And we've talked about how he doesn't sleep very much. And it's like, well, is John Myers is this bad? And also, what if somebody else is like, "Oh, I really want to start sleeping only 5 hours. I would get so much done." So a lot of it is actually very genetic. So there's not really a solid answer to that question. So I read this interesting article called Living with a Short Sleep Gene. It's a gift, it says, and it's about a man called Brad Johnson and his family. And this is a quote from Brad. He says, "Other people, even some of my siblings, slept 8, 9, 10 hours a night. I just couldn't do it. It was physically impossible. If you paid me $1 million to sleep 8 hours tonight, I couldn't." Is that you?
Yeah, they're correct. Now, and I don't have trouble falling asleep. Like, I can sleep on a plane for 3 hours or in a car if someone else is driving, not while I'm driving. And so I don't have a going to sleep problem. I can't sleep more than 5. It's just silly to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me, I guess.
And he said no matter what he did that day, how little sleep he'd had, how tired he was, he'd only get about 5 hours, he says, and be done, up, ready to go. Wasn't groggy, I wasn't tired, just ready to roll and go. And the rest of the article is about this gene mutation that is a genetic, it's a hereditary gene that the short sleep gene, where just some people don't need as much sleep. And they've done studies that found out that these people, and I'm not your doctor, so I'm not saying any of this necessarily applies to you. I don't want to get into the trouble, but I just find I found it really interesting. Was that there were no symptoms or any detrimental effects of these people getting less sleep than other people. They were getting just exactly what they needed. So there is another article called Genetics, Aging, and Sleep on the Division of Sleep Medicine at Harvard Medical School that was like, we can't even really determine a definition of like how much sleep people need because of these genetic differences, but also cultural differences. Americans tend to like sleep less and discourage napping during the day, whereas other cultures would encourage like a siesta. So it just really fluctuates and depends. I think what matters is getting the sleep that you feel like is good for you. And one of the reasons I bring this up too, there's one other person that I have met who was like you. And it was my youngest sister's coach / biology teacher. And he would tell his students like, okay, yeah, I get up at 4 a.m. I work on some crafts. I think he like makes stuff, bakes stuff, all this, whatever. He's learning new skills from 4 a.m. to whenever. And then he would jog to school.
That's not me.
And they would look out the window of their bus. It would be raining and they would see him jogging with a lamp on his head.
That's funny.
And I think the way that he said it was almost like this, everybody should aspire to this because you get a lot more done. Like you have a much fuller life because you're not sleeping as much. But it was probably his genetics that were allowing him to do that. And it is super dangerous to deprive ourselves of sleep if we do need the more hours of sleep.
So a lot of things. One, what about the advice where this time of year people go get up an hour earlier and do this thing? Like the people that are doing the 1%, they're going to write 1% more or whatever. So they get up an hour earlier to make time for writing. Well, if they're the sleepyheads that need the 9 hours, they shouldn't be doing that then, according to this.
No, unless you're like compensating for it, right? Like when I say I want to get up earlier, I also mean I want to go to bed earlier.
Oh, so it's still the same amount of sleep.
It would be the same amount of sleep. It's just that I want to switch when I'm spending that hour. I do think you can oversleep though. And there may be sleep disorders that people have that make them oversleep and things like that. So
the other thing I was going to say was then part of it is I have FOMO and I'm afraid I'm going to miss out but that's an underlying thing to the real thing of, and it's not a joke. I really am. I'm just going to miss out on something cool happening. And I like life so much. I like to be awake for it. And I think sleep is such a waste of time, but, I'm really slow at everything, like at writing and at typing and things. And so it just takes me longer to get stuff done. Now I do, if I stay up till 3 or 4, like this morning I stayed up till 4:30, right? And I got up at 8:30. So I got 4 hours of sleep. That was enough, right? I wasn't tired because I only got 4 and not 5. But look at everything I did after everyone went to bed at 10. I had like a whole nother work day.
Yeah, and that's actually what I was going to say is that people like Brad Johnson, the people with this gene, they said, are typically, I can't find the quote, but basically it was like they're super positive, enthusiastic, energetic, hardworking, ambitious, type A people. And that's kind of like what you described is like, I just want to get all the stuff done. And that's like my sister's coach, right? But I think if you were genetically predisposed to sleeping more, it wouldn't matter. I think you would still, like, your body would win over that battle.
when I don't feel like thinking, I'm not tired at 2 a.m, but when I don't feel like tackling something new, right? But it's not time to go to sleep yet. We've gotten new viewers and listeners out of this. I will go on the Twitter and I will answer people's questions with episodes of our show, and that gets us a new follower here, a new follower there. So I feel like I'm producing something, and it doesn't take any brain to go, oh, this person was talking about imposter syndrome. Here's our episode about imposter syndrome, and they love it. They like that someone cares what they care about. And then the last thing I'll say is, you said there's only one other person that you've met besides me that was like that. If you're one of us, you like Ashley Hargrove's one, because she's up. You can see who's up on Facebook at 2:30 in the morning and 3 a.m. So I know several people that are like that, because I forgot to take now Ashley Hargrove won't recognize me when I take my glasses off. And because you see that they're up, and they'll also ask you questions sometimes in the middle of the night, and they're like, oh, look, well, as a teacher, I'll answer emails. If someone emails me at 3 a.m, I'll answer it. And they'll be like, what are you doing up? I'm like, what are you emailing me for at 3 a.m. if you don't think I'm up? And so, which of your students are like that too. So anyway.
Hey, I hear the bell this time. So, listeners, if you want to learn more about sleep, you can subscribe to our podcast wherever you're listening. We would also really love if you would give us a star rating and review so that other people can find us.
Just like Kay says. That was great.
I think this means that it's time for the final act.
Yay! Emily.
Yay!
Emily, today you will be playing for this collection of leftover modeling clay. Leftover modeling clay. Look at all that, man. These are the colors what?
You just brought me back to like my childhood. I haven't seen modeling clay in a long time.
Those are the colors I didn't use when I created the creatures that I am going to use in the game. First of all, I call back to our episode on repurposing things. I'm repurposing the spice holder. I'm covering it with this space age polymer called aluminum foil so it doesn't get dirty.
I didn't know we had this kind of budget. This is a fancy game. There's a lot of effort involved.
And we're only halfway done yet. Wait till you see. All right. So today, Emily, for that leftover modeling clay, you will be playing Smush or Push. Let's not. Don't say what it sounds like, because. And the creatures that I've created from the clay are from previous episodes. Oh. And so in a previous episode, Emily called the Great Baby Race from North Carolina. So our first character is this baby right here.
Oh, wow.
That's right there. The second character is from the episode where James Cameron was talking about octopuses, and I argued that the octopuses had eyes all over their skin. So That's what we have here. We have the eyes all over the skin.
I love that one.
And then the last one, we've talked about birds on so many episodes. I couldn't make a junco because I didn't have any. There was no gray clay, so I made. I know you're gonna say it looks like a penguin, but it's a crow.
Okay.
And so, it's a crow. Don't tell me it looks like a penguin. So hopefully this crow will stand up. All right, cool. Now
I have to smush them.
So here's the rules of the game. You have to smush 2 of them and push one of them down the stairs, just like Melanie's sister going down the stairs. And you have to give the reason why. You have to explain to our viewers why you are doing what you are doing. One of these creatures has a dollar bill inside it. And that's the one you need to push, because if you squish it, you lose the dollar. If you push it down the stairs, the creature, when they get down to the bottom of the stairs, will still have the dollar in it. So that's the logic. I'm going to get the whiteboard and put it behind her so you can see the squishing and the pushing better.
I would like to... Well, I don't want to squish any of them, but I'm going to say let's squish the baby.
Oh my God. What is wrong with you? If only they could see my face. I need to get in the camera.
You created these rules.
What is... Turn this podcast off, people. What's wrong with this woman? You're going to squish the baby. Because why? You have to give a reason why.
The baby looks too small to have a dollar bill in it.
Oh.
But that could be a trick. But I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with it.
Okay. And you got to pick another thing to squish and another one to push.
The octopus, we're going to squish the octopus even though it's my favorite.
Because?
Because I don't think it's going to fall down the stairs very well. Not as well as the crow.
Let me assure you that I did not take that into consideration when I created these.
I know that you probably didn't, but I just feel like the crow toppling down the stairs is going to be the most satisfying. And I can see that there could be I don't know, I feel like the dollar bill could fit in there.
What if
But then again, maybe you did the green for the octopus to hide any color of the dollar bill, and also it has the roundest middle.
What if I wanted to squish? What if I originally thought it was going to be Snowbird and I wanted to squish him? Then he wouldn't be a push. Oh, he's moving. Did you see that? The crow just moved on his own.
I did see that.
Oh my gosh. I better not touch any of them. All right, here we go.
Oh, well, now I've kind of... Wait. Because now I've kind of convinced myself that the dollar bill might be in the octopus.
I have the giant hammer.
All right, let's squish the baby.
What is wrong with you?
It looks like a ghost.
When Baby Brooks... No, it's a baby that was in the race from North Carolina. When Baby Brooks comes out, do not show him this episode. This is terrible. All right. I should... If there's only a way you could do the squishing... Oh... Look what you've done. And look how you're laughing. That poor baby. All right.
Now we're going to squish the crow, which is a shame because it is really cute.
You're going to squish the crow.
Yep.
And push the green guy downstairs because you think subliminally I put the dollar in the green one.
Yeah, foil. Oh, that was still kind of satisfying.
Don't look at it. That's a private view of the octopus. And last but not least, you want me to squish this adorable crow.
Yeah, it's so cute. I feel sad about it. It just got his eye.
What's wrong with you laughing at this poor thing? Oh. Now, let me come back on camera. Oh my gosh, this was traumatic for me. Life is a cruel taskmaster, people. Can't believe an 18-year-old's going to watch this episode.
How do you come up with this?
I invented this one on my own. Thank you very much.
I know. I said, how did you come up with it?
I don't know. I couldn't say that other phrase that was like smush or push, so I thought of smush or push. And we talked in the last episode about where you get your ideas from. You did. You made me draw something, or I got to draw something, right? And I'm like, what can I make her do? And I was like, I could make her make something out of clay. And I'm like, how am I going to get clay to her? And then I'm like, I'll just make the thing out of clay myself. All right. So you contend that there's a dollar bill in this green octopus covered with eyeballs.
Yes.
Oh, man, this got hard.
He is ripping apart the octopus.
Wah, wah, wah. There it is. That's one empty octopus, people.
Wow.
Now,
it was a trick.
That which means you've lost. So you don't get $1.
Yeah.
You lost $1 million in a previous episode. In this episode, you lost a whole $1. Now your choice is this poor baby or this one-eyed crow. I think that's a blues song, a one-eyed crow, isn't it?
I don't know. I think it's in the crow.
Okay. I'm not tearing apart the baby. That's just too sad. Despite your inclination to... Here we go. Oh. Man.
That looks hard.
I think this is made out of licorice. Oh.
Man, that was my first instinct too.
Oh, look at that.
And I talked myself out of it.
A crisp dollar bill. Whoops.
Oh.
Don't
well.
copy this, people. Do not use this to make counterfeit ones. There you go. Sorry, baby, octopus and crow. Emily is just a cruel taskmaster.
I guess, in the end, they all had to be destroyed, and I didn't consider that.
What?
I was like, well, one of them isn't going to be destroyed. Which one do I want to not be destroyed? They all had to be destroyed.
In the end, we are all destroyed.
Yes,
what kind of show? What kind of show is this?
I meant all the toys, not us.
I'm gonna live for eternity. Thank you very much. All right. Guess what? Crow, octopus, and baby. We couldn't
have done it without.
Couldn't have done it without you. Yay! What a fun game.